It's on you, Alex.
Alexander White, CEO, founder, Minority Prospects, New Negro Leads podcast here with the head coach of North Carolina A&T, Ben Hall. How you doing today?
Great, great. Happy to be here. Thank you guys for being here too.
Man, we talk about it. I'm gonna be honest, Ben. I think my first time coming to North Carolina was this year with our ground level, but I got a chance to, see what you're working with. Everybody talk about how beautiful North Carolina A&T, especially the women, and just the things y'all have around. So a great recruiting tool that you guys have. But the big question that everybody been having is why don't HBCUs have more guys drafted? And shoot, you may have it seemed like you had a recipe the last 2 years. You had two guys drafted, Xavier McEachem, which was a guy that was in my All-American game his freshman year, and he stayed with you for 3 years, man. He continued to get better, which is testament to your program. But what do you see the landscape of HBCU baseball with getting guys to the next level, and then what has been your keys to success with you having two back-to-back draft picks?
Yeah, for one, it's all about recruiting, obviously, and we've always had a good staff, and our assistants do a great job, and they feel like they get out and and really shake the trees and find guys, and also being true to what our university's mission is too. If you're going to run a good program, it's got to be in complement of what our university does. And Xavier was a unique throwback, and so was Canyon this year. Both throwback type kids. Xavier was going to come to A&T. That was like his dream school. And loyalty, commitment, all the things it takes really to become a pro and to become a professional about what you do. And and I think the thing that is most important is for guys to just realize, if it's your time, it's your time. If you have the ability, if you don't, unfortunately, it's not for everybody. And both those guys had ability to do it. They needed time, patience, and an opportunity, really. And I think that's been the biggest key, really, is you get a good player who can play. The potential to play professional baseball at some point, but all the steps they got to take over the course of, in their case, 2 or 3 years, and both of them did it, without question. And obviously they're the ones that made their path. They put the work in. We just try to give them a platform and the resources and the effort from a coaching staff to help make sure they stay on path.
Now you had two, like Kenyon and you had and Meach, and both of those guys had two special tools. What I try to tell guys when we talk about the draft, the numbers matter, but when you have guys that have something special, Kenyon had probably one of the best catch and throw and catchers in the country, no matter what classification. Then Meacham had a plus fastball. Then he really, but people then had a plus curveball. You know what I mean? That really, he's doing really well in the minor league system right now. As they continue to the experiment and see how he, whether they use him as a starter or closer, I think he's going to be good no matter what. So when we talk about A&T, what do people don't know about A&T? Because it looks like you're getting the talent. You know what I mean? In the recruitment process, how are you winning those battles with getting top players?
Well, for one, obviously you got a great campus and a big-time degree. In the end, I know the landscape's changing and, you got money involved, but the bare bones of what college athletics is about is getting an impactful degree and being able to leverage what you do on the field. And then also what we talk about a lot in our recruiting meetings is, and when we meet with families is, if you're going to develop and you're going to become your best player, you got to have a great experience. If we're not happy on the field, if we got guys not wanting to be out there to put the work in, then they're not going to grow. And so that's a big piece. And I would be remiss to say, we've made some land shift changes in our department. We've changed conferences 3 times, and when you change conference, it affects sports differently. But I think for us in baseball, it was probably the biggest upgrade that we could have ever drawn up because we're just playing in a league that is operating at a high level. I think our conference will be a top 10 conference in the country every year, and so I think we had 10 kids drafted this year just in the second, first 2 days of the draft alone. So, that competition level breeds, more development, more motivation to put more work in. And when you go out and perform, our guy Meacham performed, Canyon performed, with the way it is in pro baseball, metrics and analytics, they're really looking at numbers. Obviously the tools play, but they're fortunate to be able to go out day in and day out, compete against other high-level draft guys, and I think it gives those guys a better look at times than maybe it has for our alumni and some of our historically. So I talk to our alumni all the time. I say, man, I wish y'all could have played where we are right now, because I think we had a lot of players, even in my 10 years, that would have even better chance here today, like our guys have now. So, but you got to have a tool. You got to have development. One tool obviously won't get you drafted either. You know, you got to perform. You got to have your best year on the right year. You know, a lot goes into it. But and that's probably the credit that those guys had. McEachem had his best year of his career in his most important year, and Canyon had a very consistent career, but he had his best year in his junior year, and you know, and that's a big part of it. But you know, some timing's a lot of it. You know, but in the end, you got to put the work in. Nothing's going to be given to you, especially now, with the draft being cut down and the opportunities limited. You know, you got to be one of the 600 best players in the country. You know, it just is what it is. So we're just fortunate that we have an operation of, you know, and the ability to support our guys in that walk. And for one guy, it will happen. For the next guy, it may not. But, you know, they've got every resource for the most part that we need to help them get there.
With those guys you had with you know, you had a great team no matter what, and not just your draft guys, but you had good players, you know, from top to bottom. When I came and saw you guys, I was like, shoot, this is probably the best team, you know, in HBCU baseball, just sweat no matter what it is. Because you now not in the sweat, like you said. Y'all playing a competitive conference with like you said, 10 guys the first 2 days got drafted. So, which is kind of a benefit kind of for you guys being an HBCU, get a chance to play against better competition day in and day out. You know, scouts ain't really got to say, hey, if they playing good competition, they know you guys are. And then when we talk about scouts, they ain't got to rely on you bringing in all the firepower. Campbell might have some guys. You know, when I was there, y'all played with George Mason, and they had a lefty arm that brought in. I think it had about he did. They ended up having like that's crazy. So y'all had like 10 scouts, 20 scouts there to see that. So going back to the recruiting process, as like I said, we serve around about 10,000 kids a year. From our All-American game to regionals and just our database. What are you looking for into kids? I know the transfer portal is crazy. So, you know, a lot of guys getting transfer guys, a lot of guys getting high school guys. What are you looking for? Outside of, we know they got to be plus arm, different things like that. But what are you looking for that you've seen that's been successful in your program in the kids?
Right. Well, I mean, I'll use those two guys. I mean, like you said, our team was good, and obviously we didn't get, you know, the end result. We didn't get where we want to be as far as the season went as a whole. But you're right. Our team was very as good as it's been in a few years, probably since 2019. And but I think in the end, you're recruiting a group as a whole. You know, you recruit pieces for what your roster needs. You're recruiting tools. You're recruiting, you know, a guy like McEachem who was a good player, was an upper 80s fastball in high school, but he's an A&T guy, right? You're recruiting those guys too. Canyon was a high-level catcher coming out of high school, but he didn't hit very great. You know, he was a little bit of a light bat coming out of high school, but for our program, we valued defense over hitting. And so, you know, every program's different, but for us, you know, we're just trying to find the highest level players that we can find that won an HBCU college experience, and that for the most part, given the climate we're in, are loyal type people, because we've been fortunate to kind of, you know, not be caught up in the portal stuff over the last couple of years. Our best players have stayed, you know, and that doesn't mean that will happen again next year. You know, it's a different world, but, you know, I think in the end you still have to value a high school player. They're the ones that are supposed to be in your program for multiple years, and if you give up on them, you don't really put yourself in a position to create synergy in a sense of, like, we're a growing program, we're evolving every year. If we just recruit a bunch of one-year guys, that doesn't fit that, right? So we're always going to be a mix of high school kids and transfers, and more high school kids than transfers probably in a given year. And you're just looking for kids that can play the game of baseball at a high level. And if they bring a tool and they develop, you know, and you coach it right and they play it right, you should win baseball games. And then if they're good enough, they'll get an opportunity to keep playing.
Last question. You know, our goal as an organization is to give back to HBCUs, not just help out your talent, but the programs. The better you guys are, the better we are, because we do an All-American game. You know, we really try to push HBCUs, and we try to push kids to go to HBCUs. What do you feel is the key component for you, if it's fun and a different thing like that, to get you guys on a level to North Carolina, and where I can call Ben and say, hey, man, I got this one of MVP All-Americans, a top 50 player in the country, where I ain't got to say it's an HBCU. They just know, oh, this is a good program, good coach, where we ain't got to say HBCU. It's just a great program. What do you think we need to get to as HBCUs? Is it facilities? Is it what do you think we need to get to where it's not a difference between a HBCU and a Power 5?
I mean, that's an easy answer. It's support and resources and facilities. If you know, I think all the HBCUs support their programs, but I think we all know that there's a different level of support. You know, and if we go to a top level player and he's got opportunities to play at a Power 5, I mean, it's just plain and simple. There's different resources that are available to them at that level. And, you know, we may never close that gap where it's completely equal, but our goals at A&T is hopefully to grow our facility and to develop your facility to the point where, you know, a top level player can go, you know, listen, I'm not going to lose out on that much versus this other school, what I'm going to get, you know, when I go to play at A&T. And, you know, in years, we obviously don't have the level of facility we want. We're working on growing it. We've always made up for that by selling ourselves and how we're going to pour into these guys. But in the end, you need a place for them where they feel like they can live at the field. You know, you need a facility that offers the analytics and the metric tracking that a lot of these big schools have. And I think if we get to that place, then to me, if I'm a top level player, everything's equal. Now I can take the facility out and I can really look at the coaching staff and the school for what it is. And if that's my best fit, I'm not going to lose anything by going there, you know. And I think that's the biggest gap that we all want to fight or to beat. I know that we want to make better at our university. You know, if we get a facility, now all bets are off, right? Because I can go to any kid in the country and say, look at this, we're a top 100 university, and we also have everything that you could ever want, you know, when you walk in that ballpark every day. And every kid has a dream. They all want to play at the highest level college they can and, you know, potentially play at the next level. And it's no secret that when you have the resources and facilities, it's going to make a big impact on that. So that's the biggest thing I see, you know, and I think when you get down and you talk to the best players and you come up short in recruiting, which everybody knows, that usually what it comes down to. And I always say this, you know, you get transfers all the time, and there's some great kids that transfer from good programs with great facilities. So we try to make sure and remind them, you know, when you left that great program, you know, and you had to transfer, those facilities aren't helping you anymore. You know, you're here now and you're getting to the nitty-gritty of development. But, you know, we all want something to continue to assist these guys beyond just human relation, coach to player. You know, these guys want to see and be valued for what they're putting into the universities. And I think baseball players deserve it. You know, they deserve it as much as football or any other sport. And I know our guys do, our program does, and I think that would immediately close the gap for sure.
Yeah, we here, man. New Negro Leagues podcast, Minority Prospects, Ben Hall, head coach at North Carolina A&T. Our goal is to continue to support these guys. Let's get out to the ballpark. A great way to raise revenue is come out and support these guys. We need to have 2,000 to 3,000 guys in the stands every night. Even kids, man. Our goal this year is to try to come at least 2 or 3 times with the ground levels and try to bring in 300 to 500 kids and parents there to check them out, because a lot of times people never been to HBCUs or been to games or been to baseball games in general, man. So here at MVP tournament, 19th year right here at MVP. Shout out to Greg Goodwin. Shout out to Clarence John, man. Happy to be here right here with Ben Hall. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.